It's 4:30 in the afternoon, Friday, November 24th, 1978. The Bank of New South Wales, Murwillumbah. After 9 hours of relentless work, there's finally a hole in the vault wall large enough for a man to squeeze through. New South Wales Police Chief Inspector Frank Charleton goes in first. He's a big man, and the hole's small. He has to twist sideways, scraping through the jagged opening they've cut through brick and steel. His torch beam sweeps across the interior. Behind him, pressed against the hole, a cluster of exhausted, anxious faces peer into the darkness. The MSS security guard who discovered the break-in at 7:30 this morning stands closest. He's been here for the whole 9 hours, watching expert after expert fail to open this door. His stomach's been in knots all day, knowing something terrible has happened on his patch, but not knowing how terrible. He's about to find out. Back inside the vault, Charlton's torch beam moves methodically across the empty shelving, down to the bare floor, along the walls. He sees a drill hole, small, precise, positioned with surgical accuracy. He sees the tampered lock mechanism. He sees the professional workmanship of whoever did this. But what he doesn't see is money. No stacks of banknotes, no bundles of cash, no emergency reserves tucked in corners. Nothing. The security guard feels his legs go weak. The bank manager's mental arithmetic suddenly becomes horrifyingly real. The Chubb technicians exchange glances. This wasn't just a break-in, this was a masterclass. The locksmiths and council workers lean closer, not quite believing what they're seeing, or rather, what they're not seeing. Chief Inspector Charleton turns back toward the hole. His face appears in the opening, torchlight illuminating the crowd of anxious faces pressed around it. He can see the bank manager's desperate hope, the security guard's fear, the exhaustion and curiosity of every man who spent hours trying to open this vault. Beyond them in the distance, he can hear reporters shouting questions. The whole town's out there. Media from 3 states already. Police from across the region. Everyone is waiting for an answer to the question that's been hanging in the air for 9 hours. How much did they take? One of the men pressed against the hole, maybe one of the Chubb technicians, might have even been the locksmith, says it first, barely above a whisper. Strewth, they've got the lot. Chief Inspector Charleton nods slowly, looks back at the empty vault, back at the faces, at 9 hours of wasted effort, at the perfect crime that just became undeniable. And he says it louder so the reporters outside can hear. They got the lot. Welcome to Strewth, the podcast where we share Australia's most perplexing mysteries. And this one is an absolute ripper. This is the story of the Murwillumbah Heist, the story of Australia's most perfect crime. Murwillumbah in November 1978 was a postcard-perfect country town tucked into the Northern Rivers region of New South Wales, just south of the Queensland border. The Tweed River winds through green valleys, Mount Warning looms in the distance, and farmland stretches in every direction. By 1978, hippie communes dot the surrounding hills, leftovers from the Aquarius Festival held in nearby Nimbin just a few years earlier. It creates an eclectic mix of characters and an amazing little town. Main Street goes quiet after dinner. The Imperial Hotel is where everyone drinks. It's the sort of place where locals know each other by name, or, most likely, by nickname. It's the kind of place where nothing ever really happens, which in its own way made it the perfect location for this heist. Every second Wednesday, like clockwork, an armoured truck from Trans Security rolled into town carrying a massive payload. Predominantly pension payments, fortnightly wages for the entire Northern Rivers region. The truck was such a familiar sight that locals barely noticed when armed guards unloaded crate after crate of cash, sometimes even having to stop traffic in the process. But importantly, the Murwillumbah branch wasn't just a local bank. It was a regional collection point. Used banknotes from banks throughout the northeast New South Wales region all funneled through here before being sent back to the Reserve Bank in Sydney, which meant that after those Wednesday deliveries, the vault held an unusually large concentration of cash, all of it in used, untraceable notes. On the day in question, $1.7 million. In today's money, that's between 10 and 12 million. The biggest concentration of cash you'd ever expect to find in a sleepy country town. And someone knew this. Someone knew the delivery schedule. Someone knew exactly what type of vault they were dealing with. And someone knew how to get into that vault. Thursday night, November 23rd, 1978. Alan Mitchell is having drinks at the Imperial with friends, sitting at the front bar with a direct view across the main street to the bank. The street is nearly empty by 10 o'clock, and he'll later tell police that we were literally looking straight at the bank from the front bar. I walked across to my car, parked right in front of it, around closing time, and didn't see or hear anything. Just 100 metres away, the local police station is fully staffed. Officers on night duty. They too hear nothing unusual. No alarm, no breaking glass, no suspicious vehicles. But inside the bank, at that time, someone's hard at work. The technique that they used bore the unmistakable signature of professionals. They bypassed the alarm system entirely. No alarm ever sounded. They entered through the rear door of the bank, and they executed a method so specialised that Detective Sergeant Bob Jackson would later tell the Sydney Morning Herald it was a very professional operation and had been well planned. First, a circular electromagnet clamped to the side of the Chubb vault. It held a powerful diamond tip drill perfectly in position. The drill created a hole positioned precisely above the combination lock's internal tumblers. A fraction of a millimetre either way, and this would have ruined the entire operation. And then came the real genius. Through that drill hole, they fed a medical cystoscope, the same optical instrument doctors would use for bladder examinations. And through the cystoscope, they could see inside the lock. They could watch the tumblers and manipulate them with precision tools. While one person worked the vault, another cut an escape hole through to the bank's second floor. A contingency plan they never even needed to use. And they did it all without raising any alarm, any sound, for those drinking at the pub or sitting in the local police station. They cleaned out that vault. Every banknote, every bundle, $1.7 million. Roughly 35 kilograms of cash. Before leaving, they removed the combination dials and handle from the outside of the vault door and jammed it shut from within. This would ensure maximum delay before discovery. By the time anyone worked out what had been taken, they'd be long gone. A detective later told reporters with a mixture of admiration and frustration. They were probably back in bed asleep before the robbery was even discovered. At 7:30 on the Friday morning, the MSS security guard makes his rounds. The rear door is ajar. He steps inside and sees the tampered vault, tries to open it. Nothing. He calls the police. What follows is 9 hours of escalating desperation. Local locksmiths try and fail. The Chubb experts fly up from Brisbane and work for 5 hours without success. Finally, local council workers are called in with sledgehammers, jackhammers, and diamond-tipped drills to smash through 4 layers of brick and cut through the steel wall itself. 9 hours total. 9 hours of insurance for whoever pulled this off. 9 hours to get away. Within 24 hours, 25 detectives from 3 states descend on Murwillumbah. This isn't a local investigation anymore. New South Wales Police, Queensland Police, Victoria Police, all converging on a town that's never seen anything like this. The main street is crawling with police cars, outside broadcast vans, reporters with cameras. A town of 8,000 has just become famous for all the wrong reasons. Detective Sergeant Bob Jackson tells the Sydney Morning Herald that this was a very professional operation, well planned and executed with precision. But Deputy Chief of the CIB, Superintendent Bill Holmes, goes even further. The Murwillumbah theft, he says, is consistent with at least 9 other robberies in Victoria. The technique is too similar to be coincidence, the expertise too specific. This isn't the crew's first job, and they've already got a name for them down in Victoria: the Magnetic Drill Gang. Not amateurs, not opportunists who got lucky. An organised criminal enterprise that's been operating across Australia for years, hitting vault after vault with the same sophisticated technique. Multiple robberies, the same electromagnetic drill method, the same precision, the same level of technical expertise that takes years to develop. And so the detectives start to build profiles, running down names and cross-referencing known criminals with the specific skills needed to pull this off. They're looking for safe crackers, vault specialists, anyone with a history of using magnetic drills and precision equipment. The list narrows quickly because this isn't a common skill set. You can't just learn this from a book. And 2 names quickly rise to the top. The first is Ray Chuck, a career criminal and known associate of the Magnetic Drill Gang in Victoria. The technical expert everyone whispers about when a vault needs cracking. He's got multiple arrests across Victoria for robberies using the exact same electromagnetic drill technique. Ray Chuck also understands Chubb vaults better than most locksmiths. He knows where to drill, what equipment to use, how to manipulate the internal mechanisms without leaving obvious damage. Police interviews with informants confirm what the detectives already suspect. If someone needed to crack a vault in 1978, Ray Chuck's name came up in those conversations. The second name, Graham Kinniburgh. He's well connected to Melbourne's criminal underworld. Not just connected, but embedded, deep. The kind of operator who can assemble a crew of specialists, coordinate a major job across state lines, and keep everyone disciplined and quiet. Kinniburgh has the organisational skills, the connections and the criminal pedigree to plan something this sophisticated. He's done time, he knows how investigations work, and he knows how to avoid leaving evidence. The detectives also develop a working theory that makes a bit of sense. The crew use the Gold Coast as their base of operations, which is quite brilliant when you think about it. It's only 30 minutes north of Murwillumbah, close enough for easy access, but far enough to avoid local scrutiny. More importantly, it's a tourist hotspot. Hundreds of people check in and out of the Gold Coast motels every single week. Surfers catching waves, families on holiday, interstate visitors passing through. Everyone there's transient. Everyone's anonymous. Quite the opposite to sleepy old Murwillumbah. It's perfect cover. You book a room midweek, blend in with all the other tourists and drive down to Murwillumbah on Thursday night, execute the job and drive back before dawn. And then you sleep soundly in your motel room while the cops are still trying to open the vault 9 hours later. Check out on Friday or Saturday morning after you've had a full English breakfast like any other tourist eating home, and you vanish into the crowd. No one remembers you because no one was paying attention in the first place. And so the detectives turn the Gold Coast upside down, checking every hotel and motel within a 30-kilometre radius, and there's plenty to check. They're looking for anyone suspicious, anyone who checked in Wednesday or Thursday and checked out on Friday. Anyone who paid cash instead of using a credit card. Anyone who seemed nervous or was travelling with unusually heavy bags. Detectives are methodically showing photographs of Raychuck and Graham Kinniburgh to desk clerks up and down the coast, asking if anyone remembers seeing these men. Back in Murwillumbah, identikit sketches are prepared based on some witness accounts. 2 men were seen near the bank around 9:30 p.m. on Thursday night, loitering in a way that seemed odd to people who noticed. The witnesses describe them as carefully as they can, and the police artist does his best. One witness remembers they probably drove a white Holden HQ panel van, the kind of vehicle that's so common it's practically invisible. The tips start flowing in as the word spreads and the reward money climbs to $250,000, which is in and of itself an absolute fortune in 1978, enough to set someone up for life, enough to make even loyal friends consider talking. People call Crime Stoppers with information, some useful, mostly not. Some think they saw Raychuck at a Gold Coast pub. Someone else remembers a suspicious van parked behind their motel. Every lead gets followed up, every tip gets checked, because you never know which one might break the case wide open, just like a bank vault. But one by one, the leads fall apart under any sort of scrutiny. Detectives simply can't place Raychuck in Murwillumbah or the Gold Coast that week. His known associates provide alibis. Weak ones maybe, but alibis nonetheless. They can't place Graham Kinniburgh either anywhere near the Northern Rivers. They can't find the white panel van, can't trace it through registration records or repair shop logs. They can't connect anyone to suspicious cash deposits in the months following the robbery. No unexplained wealth appearing in bank accounts or property purchases that might indicate someone spending their share of $1.7 million. And nobody breaks under questioning. Nobody talks. The crew, whoever they are, holds together with ironclad discipline. But the detectives kept coming back to one nagging question. In a small town like Murwillumbah, where everyone knows everyone, how did the robbers know so much about this bank? Former Tweed Mayor Max Boyd, a councillor at the time, voiced what many locals were thinking. The crooks knew that the Murwillumbah branch kept cash supplies from other banks in the area. Someone must have told them this. Why else would you come all this way and target a country branch? Inside information, it had to be. And so, one by one, bank employees were interviewed, security guards were questioned. The trans-security drivers who made those regular Wednesday deliveries, they were pulled in too. Everyone with any bit of knowledge of the schedule, the vault, the layout. In a town of 8,000, suspicion is a corrosive thing. People noticed when someone's car was parked at the police station for hours. They noticed when detectives showed up at houses. Suddenly, long-time neighbours were looking at each other differently. But no one broke. No one confessed. No evidence emerged linking anyone local to the crime. And the perfect crew held together. The investigation continued on for months and then years. The case was reviewed periodically, new detectives taking fresh looks at old evidence. Nothing changed. Chuck and Kinnaburra remained suspects in name only, but they were never charged, never arrested. The months became years and the years became decades. On the 40th anniversary in 2018, New South Wales Police issued a statement. Even though today marks 40 years since this robbery occurred, the New South Wales Police remain dedicated to arresting those responsible. There's no statute of limitations for armed robbery in New South Wales. Anyone could still be prosecuted today. But the trail was as cold as the bank vault that it had been taken from. The crew had got away with it, and the perfect crime stayed perfect. And then, 44 years later, something extraordinary happened. An 88-year-old career criminal decided to tell his story, decided to take a bow. Buried amongst the pages of his memoirs was a confession that would reignite Australia's most famous unsolved robbery. January 2022, an 88-year-old man named Robert Birdie Kidd publishes his memoir. And there it is, in black and white. I did the Murwillumbah bank job. Now, you've got to understand that Birdie Kidd wasn't just some random old man spinning yarns. His own barrister once described him as one of the most complete criminals in the nation's history. 27 years served in various prisons, involvement in the infamous Fine Cotton horse racing scandal, links to multiple underworld killings, the kind of criminal resume that makes you pay attention when he claims responsibility for the perfect crime. According to Kidd's account, he planned the Murwillumbah job for 3 months, but it was never about the bank itself. It was about the trans-security armoured truck. His crew allegedly followed it up and down the coast for months before selecting Murwillumbah as the optimal target. If we hit the bank, Kidd explained, there would be less risk of someone getting hurt. His story fit with everything known about how the heist was executed. But there was just one problem. Birdie Kidd couldn't have been there. He admitted it himself. Right before the time of the heist, he was arrested for a botched robbery at the Murwillumbah Bay Hotel in Sydney. So while his alleged crew was cracking that vault, Birdie Kidd was sitting in a prison cell, watching the news coverage unfold in the common room with delight. He claimed the actual haul was more than $2 million, not the reported 1.7. He insisted his informant wasn't a police officer, security guard, or bank employee, and he said that he felt sorry for the locals who fell under suspicion. Detective Chief Inspector Brendan Cullen's response was diplomatic. I am dubious about Kidd's claims, but having said that, if he's got information relevant to that inquiry, I'd be very happy to have a chat with him. And here's the other problem about Kidd's statements. Nothing in his account contained information that wasn't already public. The techniques, the timing, the amount stolen, all of it had been broadcast on television and published in newspapers for 4 decades. As The Guardian pointed out, anyone could have assembled his story from media coverage. Was Kidd really the mastermind whose crew executed his plan while he sat in prison? Or was he just an old criminal looking to add one more legendary score to his resume? We'll never know. No charges resulted from his confession, and the case remains officially unsolved. And here's the beautiful thing about the Murwillumbah bank job. It doesn't matter that it was never solved, because within a week of the robbery, the legend was already bigger than the crime. Local businessman Peter Moore and his father Herb started selling. They got the lot, t-shirts from their menswear store on Main Street. T-shirts, tea towels, beer glasses, caps. The merchandise itself became a phenomenon, spreading across Australia and even internationally. And not surprisingly, you can still buy these t-shirts in Murwillumbah today, nearly half a century later. Australian country band Murwillumbah immortalised the heist song. Their 1979 recording, Murwillumbah Bank Job, captured every detail. The song ends with a sentiment many locals shared. Well, I know it was illegal, and I know it wasn't right, but at least there was no violence in the quiet of the night. The Tweed Regional Museum too now holds the artefacts. Original t-shirts, the vinyl record, photographs by local photographer Bruce Devine, whose images made front pages worldwide. So what made this crime resonate? Why does it endure as folklore? Partly, I think, it's because no one was hurt. The Murwillumbah job represented something from an earlier era, a professional, non-violent crime. The robbers targeted an institution and not individuals. And there's also something almost admirable about the precision, the planning, the sheer technical expertise required. There's the geographic irony. This was 1978. Murwillumbah was surrounded by hippie communes. Into this sleepy counter-cultural pocket of Australia came sophisticated criminals who executed a masterpiece and then vanished. And perhaps most importantly, the crime represents a vanished world before electronic transfers, before CCTV saturation, when fortnightly wages arrived in cash-filled armoured trucks, when a country bank vault could hold nearly $2 million in untraceable notes. And that world's gone. The money never recovered. Not a single banknote. $1.7 million vanished into the Australian economy without a trace. Maybe it bought houses in Melbourne. Maybe it funded other criminal enterprises. Maybe it was spent carefully over decades by professionals who understood that patience is the ultimate skill in any heist. And perhaps a good chunk of it ended up with a lot of bookies around the country too. On November the 23rd, 1978, someone walked into that bank. They disabled the alarm. They cracked a Chubb vault that was supposed to be impregnable. They took every dollar, and just for fun they jammed the door shut. Then they vanished. 46 years later, we still don't know who they were. We don't know exactly how they did it. Even if Birdie Kid was telling the truth, we don't know who his crew was. And we certainly don't know where the money went. We only know this. Somewhere out there, someone pulled off the perfect crime and got away with it. Today, you can visit Murwillumbah and walk down Main Street where it all happened. The Imperial Hotel is still there across the street, still serving drinks. The police station has moved to a different building, and the bank itself has changed hands and purposes. The town has grown and changed, but the legend endures. Because in the end, the Murwillumbah bank job became more than Australia's biggest unsolved robbery. It became a story about professionals who outsmarted the system, who heard impossible and proved otherwise, who turned a country town into the stage for criminal history. Chief Inspector Frank Charleton's infamous 4 words captured it all. 4 words that will echo through Australian criminal folklore forever. They got the lot. Strewth, what a yarn. Thanks again for listening to the show. Thanks for all of you reaching out on social media. You'll find us Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the whole lot. Next week we're going to delve into one of Australia's most mysterious true crimes. It'll be a 2-part episode covering the death of Beth Barnard and the disappearance of Vivian Cameron on Phillip Island, a case that's re-emerged in the media in recent weeks with a pretty spectacular update. Thanks again for listening. Bye.